Howdy guys, Mr. Allen here. We're going to go over just a few long division problems. I'm going to probably spend more time explaining the first one and then a little less time explaining the other ones. This first problem here I'm also going to relate to maybe a method that you've used in 4th grade. So if what I'm drawing on the right side right now reminds you of something that's really good. So we're going to try and use our knowledge of what we have learned in 4th grade to kind of make sense of the standard long division algorithm, which is what we're learning right now in 5th grade. And all an algorithm is, it's like a set of rules or directions that we follow to do something. So in this case, the long division algorithm is just some steps that we follow to do long division. So let's solve on the right hand side first, the way that we used to do this in 4th grade. So we have 732 divided by 6. Okay, so you've probably, there's multiple ways to go about solving this kind of problem in 4th grade. So if you don't solve it exactly like I do, what really matters is that you get the same answer as me. So let's go over this. So you might do something like this. You might say, well, 6 can go into 700, so maybe you're looking at the hundreds place, right? 6 can go into 700 100 times even, so 100 times 6 and 600, then you subtract and we get 132. I hope this is looking kind of familiar to you already, because this is the 4th grade method. Then we go, okay, well, how many times can 6 go into 132? I'd say, well, I think 20 times, right? 20 times 6 would be 120. Then I'd subtract. So I'm kind of taking chunks out of it, right? I'm not doing it all at once. And then I'd get 12, and I'd go, okay, well, how many times does 6 fit into just 12? And you'd probably say, well, 2. 2 times 6 is 12, and I would get my answer, okay? So we kind of said, well, 6 can go into it 600 times, but then it can also fit into it 120 more times, and then, sorry, I think I messed it up here, guys. Sorry, 6 can go into it 100 times, which is 600, and then 20 more times, which is 120, and then 6 can fit into it 2 more times, which is 12, okay? So, sorry, I got those backwards in the first, but I hope you caught my mistake there as I was explaining it. So yeah, so 6 altogether now we want to know, how many times can 6 fit into 732? Well, if it can fit into it 100, and then 20, and then 2 more times, hopefully you've put together that you just add all these up, and hopefully, once again, this is review from 4th grade, and you get 0 plus 0 plus 2 is 2, 0 up here plus 2 is 2, and then 1 plus nothing else is 1. So I get 122 as an answer, okay? So we could always double check that, right? How could we double check that? Take a minute and think. How could you double check a long division problem? Well, if I do 122 times 6, right? 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 2 again is 12 plus 1, 13. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1, 7. 732, 732. So I must be on the right track. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how long division works. And it works very much like our 4th grade method, but there's a lot less digits involved. So it's going to look similar in some ways and different in other ways. So over here I've got 6, and how many times can 6 go into 732? Okay, so 732 divided by 6. And I've got this grid to kind of help me keep my numbers orderly. So I'm going to start with the hundreds place, just like I did over here, right? When I said 6 goes into 700, how many times? I'm going to say 6 goes into 7, how many times? I'm going to say 6 can fit into 7 once, okay? So 6 going into 7 once is just 6. Then I want to subtract and take away, so I've got 1. Okay, so I hope that you see kind of the parallel to so far over here, right? So this 1 up top here is in the hundreds place, and this 6 actually represents kind of like a 600. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I actually want to bring down this 3 and put it right here, and I'll say 6 goes into 13 how many times? So previously we had thought about 132, right? But now I want us to think about 13. 6 goes into 13 how many times? Well, if you said twice, you're right. 6 can go into 13 2 times. 6 times 2 is 12, right? If it can go into 13 2 times, that means it's 12. Then I'm going to subtract. Get 1. So see, I'm still subtracting just like over here when I subtracted after each step. Okay. Then I'm going to bring down this 2. And 6 goes into 12, which you remember is the same as over here, right? 6 goes into 12 2 times. 6 times 2 is 12. And 0. So I hope you could see how, and let's see if I can get my highlighter to help us out, how this 6 is the same as this 6, and then how this 13, right, is the same as this 130, and if you see, even the place values line up, right? Even the place values line up for this. And then how in the end we ended up with a 12. We ended up with a 12, and we said, okay, my answer is already up top, right? 122 up top here. Well, over here we would actually have to add up our multiple parts, right? We'd have to find these multiple parts of how many times 6 can fit into 732. Over on this side, right? Over on this side, we did the same thing, just a little bit differently, okay? If you want to watch this explanation again at this point before moving on to the next problem, definitely rewind the video, watch it again, try to understand a little bit more. Don't get too stuck though, just move on, try to follow along in the future, but this is going to be the only problem that I really do this kind of in-depth explanation for, okay? So go back and rewatch if you need. We're going to move on to the next problem. Alright, here's the next problem here. We've got 231 divided by 4. So I'm not going to do our partial division over on the right. I'm just going to go straight for this one. So we're going to start by seeing how many times 4 can go into the hundreds place here. So does 4 fit into 2? Does 4 fit into 2? No. So we would actually say, okay, 4 fits into that 0 times. And if you've learned a different way at this point, that's fine, but I'm going to do it this way for today. 4 goes into 2 0 times. So I'd say, okay, 0, right? Because if 4 goes into 0 times, and 4 times 0 is 0, I'm going to take that away. 0, or 2. Oh my God. 2 minus 0 is 2, and bring down the 3 here. Okay. Now 23, does 4 fit into 23? Yes, it does. 5 times, right? If 4 fits into 23 5 times, what is that? Well, it would be 20, right? 4 times 5 is 20. Take away here. You get 3. Then what's my next step? What do you think my next step is? If you said bring down the 1, you're right. Okay. And 4 goes into 31 how many times? Okay, hopefully you paused, or maybe you're thinking. I'm kind of giving you some think time. 4 goes into 31, not 8 times, because that'd be over. So I'd go 7 times. Let's see. 4 times 7 is 28. 3, and there's nothing else to bring down, so 3 actually is our remainder. Okay, remainder. So we get 57, remainder 3. If you want to double check that, you would do 57, right, times 4. Then whatever you get for your answer down here, you would add 3. I'm not going to do that right now. If you want to do that to double check it, that'd be awesome. Okay, but we're going to move on to our next problem. All right, here's our next problem. Definitely please pause the video, try it by yourself. Maybe if you watch it first, go back, try it by yourself and watch it again, right? Just because I've already solved it or you've already watched it be solved doesn't mean that you can't solve it, okay? So let's do this. 193 divided by 6. Well, does 6 fit into 1? No. So 6 fits into 1 0 times. So if 6 0 times is 0, right? 6 times 0 is 0. So I take that away. 1 minus 0 is 1. And then my next step is bring down the 9. 6 goes into 19. How many times? Well, I would say 3 times. So 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract 1. Then what's my next step? Bring down the 3 here. Then 6 goes into 13. How many times? 2 times. 12. 13 minus 12 is 1. And I have another remainder of 1. Okay? And that's all for that one. All right, folks. This is our last one here. 656 divided by 5. All right, our 5 times tables. That's not too bad. Most of us are pretty comfortable with those. So definitely pause this one. Try it by yourself if you haven't already. And then let's go through it. 5 goes into 6. How many times? Say 1 time. That 1 time is 5 times 1, so 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. What's my next step? Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 15. How many times? You said 3, that's right. So now what do I do? Well, 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract. 15 minus 15 is 0. What's my next step? Bring down the 6. 5 goes into 6. How many times? Once. And that 1 time. So what is 5 once, right? It would be 5. Go 6 minus 5 is 1. So what is that 1? It's a remainder. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. If you have found another video or website that's helpful, please post a link down below. I would love it if you shared that with your classmates. Also, I hope you noticed that I did these problems a little out of order from the worksheet that you have. So just if you got confused at first, I hope you figured that out. But if not, just throwing it in right now, okay? So once again, if there's any tips you have for your classmates or any other helpful links, post those down below. Yeah. And I hope this helped. Let me know if there's anything else that maybe I could have done to help you guys out.